All right, let's just jump right in. Today, we are going to unpack a rule from the world of relationships that, well, on the surface, it makes absolutely no sense. But it's a boundary that actually reveals some pretty profound truths about how our brains are wired for love, sex, and connection.
So get this. Here's the central paradox that confuses pretty much everyone. An arrangement where sexual intercourse with a third person is perfectly fine, but kissing that same person is strictly forbidden. I know, it sounds completely backward, right?
And hey, if you're thinking that's absurd, you're not alone. That reaction is totally normal. But the confusion really comes from a huge misunderstanding about what intimacy really is to our brains. See, this no kissing rule isn't random. It's a very specific, very carefully built psychological wall. Okay, so to get our heads around this, we've got to tear down a big idea, a myth, really, that we've all kind of been fed about relationships and physical connection. You know the story we're always told, right? That sex is like the peak of the mountain, the ultimate intimate act, the deepest bond you can possibly share. But when you look at the psychology of it, the neurology, well, the reality is a whole lot more complicated than that. Just look at how our brains handle these two things. They are not the same at all. Sexual contact, that mostly lights up our arousal systems. And, we can often box that up, compartmentalize it as just a physical thing. But a real, passionate kiss? Whoa, that's a different story. It directly hits the attachment and bonding buttons in our brain, which makes it almost impossible to separate from our emotions. Think of it like a chemical cocktail. When you kiss someone, your brain gets flooded with all this stuff. You've got oxytocin, the cuddle hormone that builds trust. Dopamine, the reward chemical that makes you crave more. It can even mess with your serotonin, which is why you get kind of obsessive, that I can't stop thinking about them feeling. You put it all together, and it's basically a recipe for catching feelings. And that is exactly what this rule is designed to stop. Okay, so kissing is a bonding superpower. Got it. But why is it seen as this huge relationship-ending threat? Well, for that we have to rewind way, way back into our evolutionary programming. And this isn't just some modern idea, believe it or not. Look across pretty much 90% of human cultures on the planet, and romantic kissing is almost never just a casual thing. It's a sign, a signal that says, we're a pair. So if you think about it from an evolutionary psychology perspective, one of the biggest risks for our ancient ancestors, specifically males, was raising a kid that wasn't genetically his. This hardwired a massive alarm bell in the brain, and that alarm didn't just go off for sex. It went off for anything that signaled his partner was emotionally bonding with someone else. And that's the key right there. A one-off sexual encounter, our ancient brain might be able to handle that. But a kiss, that screams new couple alert. It signals a potential new emotional bond, which could threaten the entire resource and investment structure of the primary relationship. So this no kissing rule, it's basically a modern workaround for a very, very old panic button. But it's not all about our deep past. This rule does something really important right here, right now. It acts as a kind of psychological safety net in what can be a super intense situation. The idea is something called bounded transgression. It's a fancy term for a simple idea. You're allowed to break a rule, but only because there's a much bigger, stronger rule in place that keeps everything from flying off the rails. It's like a tether. It stops things from getting truly chaotic. So yeah, that no kissing rule is literally the safety rope. It lets the couple explore some pretty wild psychological territory, to give up some control, but they always know that rope is tied securely back to what really matters, their primary bond. It keeps the fantasy and arousal separate from what feels like a real emotional threat.
So you might be thinking, okay, this is interesting, but what does it have to do with me? Well, even if this specific situation feels like it's from another planet, there's a huge lesson in here for literally every single relationship. And here's what it is. This rule proves that there is no one-size-fits-all ladder of intimacy. We're all told that sex is at the very top, right? But the truth is, every couple gets to decide for themselves what's on the top rung. And for a lot of people, other things mean way, way more. For one couple, kissing is more sacred than sex. For another, the most intimate act might be telling each other their deepest fears or sharing a moment of real vulnerability. Heck, it could even be a simple morning ritual that nobody else is a part of. The point is, it's not the act itself. It's the meaning you both give it. And that's true for all of us. A really strong, authentic relationship isn't about checking boxes from some societal script of what intimacy should be. It's about figuring out what's uniquely sacred to you as a couple, and then protecting that space fiercely. So, I'll leave you with this question to think about. It doesn't have to be about kissing or sex, but what's the no kissing rule in your relationship? What's that one thing, maybe something small, that holds all the weight? The one thing that is and must always be just for you two.